Okay, good morning, good morning. It does not look like we are live streaming it today. However, we are recording, so it's always a good start. Good morning, Timothy. Okay, as we go, if you have questions or if you know that you have a question right off the bat, feel free to post that into the chat. And I am just pulling up my notes. Okay. Welcome if you are new. If you are new here, this is the Bookkeeper Blueprint, where we tell you everything we've done, everything we're doing. We really leave nothing out. So anything goes. If you're looking to start or continue growing your bookkeeping business, that is what Megan and I do, day in, day out, and we are open books. So if there's something you're struggling with, I know Tuesday night I host the co-working call that we've coined many years ago, and we've kept them just because they're like a wealth of information when we start diving into like real problems that you're having, either starting, growing, handling clients, things like that. And this week we had started the conversation. Someone had a question about email marketing, and email marketing, if you're not doing it as a bookkeeper, really consider doing email marketing. Not cold emails. You're not going to go buy a list or download a bunch of lists of chiropractors and mass email them. Hey, I provide bookkeeping services to chiropractors. That's certainly something you can do. But not necessarily the most efficient way if you're looking to bring income in the door right now. Okay. So what we were talking about was like we had moved from like email marketing, websites, things like that, to just like the bigger like marketing goal. And I know my marketing has shifted over the years to, what works. I'm going to double down on what works. And that's what you guys are going to do as well. As you go, you're definitely going to double down on what works. For me, part of that's email marketing. It is not direct outreach for me personally. Good morning, Megan. I'm going to add you here.
Good morning.
I couldn't get us live, just FYI, if you wanted to take us live. So
yeah, I can try.
I can make you a host. It wanted me to like sign into something
Okay, yeah, I can see if it'll work.
Access very well. Oh, I think you're host. Okay. Okay, so with that said, as we were talking, where did we end that? Like, I've talked to you guys about how you're email marketing, how you're reaching out to your niche, how you're really making yourself more valuable than, hey, I provide peace of mind. And so many of you guys get really stuck on, well, I don't know what a bookkeeper does. And you look at everybody's website. Well, everybody's website says peace of mind. But when I say you need to evaluate what words your prospective clients are using, I am not saying that lightly. I'm not saying that because it sounds intellectual. Like, if they're saying my issue is, now I'm 300,000 in revenue and I am still not an S corp and I don't know how to tax savings last year was horrid, because like think about the trajectory of a business owner. A business owner might start out as a hobby, then it grows to like 50,000 and they're like, oh, I could leave my job, this replaces that. And then they're like, oh, but now I'm doing all the work. And so they're like, okay, well, how do I not do all the work? Okay, so now they're at 150,000. Maybe they have a VA, an admin sitting at the desk, some sort of help. They're stocking counters, things like that. They've got some hands. So that could be retail, that could be investor, that could be real estate agent, all of those things. It could be your service-based HVAC. It could be your mechanic, right? So it applies to all the niches. Well, then, okay, well, I really wanted a business, not a job. Or they say, hey, I can turn this into a business and not my full-time job, and I can get some time back now with my family. So how do I do that? And you're going to see that that's going to shift their income. So now they went from 150 to maybe 250, 300. And now they're like a real business, right? So with that said, what issues do they run into at each of those thresholds? They're going to all look different. So what we were talking about on the Tuesday night call, and this is before I really dive into like why all of this matters, and just so that you can really start thinking, what type of bookkeeping business do I want to build and how does it hit home, right? So we were talking about like the $500,000 a year business, because some of you guys, you're having conversations, they need a bookkeeper. You look at their books and they're like 50,000 a year. And you're like, well, I want to charge 500, 1,500 a month for bookkeeping. Well, someone doing 50,000 a year isn't going to want to give you 10% of their revenue to do their bookkeeping. Okay. So when you're talking to prospective clients, if we're capturing, okay, well, what is the 50,000 a year person saying? Right? And I'm unorganized. I don't know what I need to be doing. I am stuck. The 300,000 a year business is going to be talking about, how do I save money on taxes? Like, because it's a shift. And so, and you don't have to do tax prep. And there's other things that 300 a year business is going to be saying, not just taxes. I was just giving an example of the difference there. Because you might have a 50,000 a year business asking about tax savings because it's the first time that they're like handling it themselves. So there is that. I just wanted to encourage you, as you're reaching out to people, doing prospective calls, to really be listening to the words that they're using, because it's going to show you how to market. The other thing, we took that from, okay, once we know what we're talking about, who we're talking to, and Cameron, I see your question. How do we really market to them? Well, where are they looking for a bookkeeper? If you're doing 50,000 a year, where would you look for someone to do your own books? And most of you are like, well, I'm just going to do my own books. But I would really challenge you to question that. Like, okay, if you're not going to pay $500 a month to have someone do your books, how can you justify it? Do you know how much it actually costs you to do your books in terms of like your hours that you're spending? And it's going to give you a framework to who you're talking to. It's going to give you a framework on how to quote, because you're getting insight to how to quote yourself. Like my books, I class track, I do some like tagging and different things. Like, it would not be cheap to pay one of you to do what I have decided to do in my bookkeeping. So like, I have to factor that in. Some of you have one checking account. you're coding everything to income, office expenses, subscriptions, maybe some cost of services, Intuit subscriptions, bank fees. You're done in an hour, 97 a month. Feels very justified, right? You're 50 transactions a month. Great. If you know that, what would make you hire a bookkeeper? So you think about yourself as you're going as well. Okay, I'm going to pause there. I just wanted to give you some context to like what we talk about in the co-working calls. And I just thought it really shifts how we think about our own bookkeeping business as we start to like dive into getting to know the business owners we actually want to do business with. Um, so do your accounts, are you referring to like your chart of accounts? Yeah, I mean, to some degree, but maybe not. Um, if you're, especially from like a bookkeeping perspective, like you really don't need a lot of chart of accounts. Um, but you might grow with how you track things. Obviously, like if you now add payroll, you're going to add a payroll chart of accounts. But one thing I one thing I see business owners do if they're handling their own bookkeeping is they create a lot of chart of accounts, like to like subcategorize everything. That might not be the most efficient way. Like, what is it actually getting you from a management perspective to do so? So I always, what is the tax return that they're filing and how much information do they need? Sometimes they do need some more information, but the more accounts, the more the more chart of accounts that we're kind of keeping up with, it's going to slow down the work. So, like, yay, rules and things like that. But if you're breaking out like products and like I break out products, this might be cleanup work, this might be monthly bookkeeping services, this might be, 1099 income or whatever, commission income. But then you have to like analyze the money coming in to split those out. So it really depends on like what information you have. But I would say that they do grow, right? Like I agree that they grow, for sure. Okay, so just like our business owners that we're talking to, when we get into this business, some of you, how many of you actually put in the chat? How many of you got into bookkeeping because you're like, oh, I can make some like side income working a very little a week, right? So like, and as you guys are answering that question, I saw a post yesterday, Megan, that it said it was talking about like spouse like income. So like if you have like a second spouse working, let's say that they're making 50,000, 55,000 a year was the context of the post. So like in the context of the post, like the husband was making six figures or 80,000 to 120. I don't remember exactly what though. So like they're living off of that for the most part. And then the wife is making like 55,000 a year. And let's call it, I think they said, I don't know if I saved it. Let's call it 5,000 went to taxes, right? Gone off the top. Well, now they're paying for daycare. Let's call that 2,000 a month. That's 25,000 gone. Well, as it divided out the remaining of that income after daycare, let's see if I can make it close. Oh, they did more. They did more in taxes and more in that. It was like $350, like $360 a week in income to the household. Guys, that's 4 clients, right? Like 5 maybe to cover some expenses. So it's 5 clients. 5 clients paying you $350 to $500 a month. And then that's earning you. And if you're doing the work, you can do that workload in a weekend a month. Like, no joke. So that's $1,750 a month times 12. That's $21,000 a year. Now you do also have taxes, so like, pay attention to that. I think when I was I started wanting to make like $1,200 a month, so my goal was $2,400 to cover taxes and everything like that. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, if some of you guys started doing your husband's books, that's what Erica's saying. I've heard that quite a bit. And then you're like, oh, hey, I could do this for other people, just like Erica said. Absolutely. Okay. Some of you, though, when you started it, you're like, hey, I didn't just start this to earn some side income. I started this to like be my job. And that might lend itself to the accountants in the room right now, who you're like, well, if they can have an accounting practice, maybe you're working for a CPA and you're like, well, I can do the bookkeeping all day long. I do financial statements, and so I could do this. Okay, so ask yourself, why do you want to do the bookkeeping business? And I would go deeper. Megan, you say this all the time. Go deeper. Example, ask yourself, make it 7 layers deep. Okay. So why do I want to start a bookkeeping business? To earn some side income. Why? Again, to earn some side income, and do this 7 times. And Megan would say, do it until it makes you cry. Get to the emotional heart of that. Does that make sense? So really drill down, and one of the ways that you can do it is go 7 layers deep. Okay? So first step, who do you serve? We talked about this at the very beginning. I kind of started with this. Get really clear on who you serve. It doesn't have to be a niche. If it is a niche, who, why, go deeper. What kind of lifestyle do they want? Do they want to be taking vacations? Are they RVing every weekend? Are they homeschooling their children? Are they wanting to do private education for their children? Are they wanting to get out of debt? What lifestyle do they want? Are they nomadic? So they want to live the nomad life. They want, what is it? What is it that there's a common theme of? I know that from my clients. I know who I serve, and I know roughly what their family home life type goals are. And then what do you want less of in your business? Less chaos? Do you want to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off? Less? Okay. Clarity is going to create conviction. That conviction is going to create momentum. So I think, Megan, the first week we did that like 5-day challenge when we started CB4S a long time ago. We talked about momentum, especially with marketing. It takes a hot second to get some traction. Once you answer these questions and go really deep, really know this person. Like, I want you to be able to, when you're writing a post or sending an email, you're going to say, hi, Josh, in your mind. And you're going to know what their kids look like. You're going to know, roughly. You're going to know what they're doing as you, like the date that you send the email out. Maybe they're at the movies on a Tuesday. because they can be. You're going to know that. You're going to know if they're answering the email, if they're looking at the email from their phone or from the computer, because you know what type of lifestyle they're living. Okay, so today the real goal is, how do you start to move forward with confidence and starting and growing this business? You're going to start with one service. Megan, at one point felt like, I know you felt like you had to, you took a course to learn how to do taxes.
Yeah, because it seemed like in the beginning everybody that was reaching out was, I need somebody to do taxes. And honestly, I think it was the way I was wording my marketing, because it was like, hey, have you not filed your taxes and stuff like that. But yeah, so I ended up buying a course, took a course, and then was like, this is not a headache I want to deal with. I just want to do bookkeeping. And that's all I've done since 6 years now.
So one service, one offer, basically monthly
Yep.
bookkeeping, one offer, one type of client. So like for you, it's very much bookkeeping, monthly bookkeeping, one offer. It's going to look like this. Now your offer changes with like how much work there is, and then one kind of client. Like, I think like you're very much small business, kind of globally, but like one, like I think if we were to like pull up your clients, there would be a common thread, right?
Yep.
You would see a common theme in my clients. Um, Keep it simple. And we've talked about this before, like start with one service, one offer. Like you don't have to do invoicing. You don't have to do accounts payable, like bill pay. You do not have to do payroll. You do need to reconcile AR. You do need to reconcile accounts payable, and you need to reconcile payroll. A lot of you guys, number one, if I'm getting on a call with you and you have a payroll question, number one question I'm going to ask is, are you reconciling payroll? And 90% of the time, new bookkeepers are not reconciling payroll. So we talked to you about how to do that inside of the Bookkeeper Blueprint if you know that you're not reconciling payroll. I honestly don't care how easy their payroll is. Reconcile payroll. Like, just build that habit, and build it as like a system within like your checklist. Reconcile payroll. If they have payroll, even if they're running it, even if it's salary payroll, they're going to get paid $2,000 a month because they're an S corp. Practice, do it, build the habit, build it into your systems. Reconcile payroll. Okay. And like that goes, because you're going to catch a lot of things. You're going to start asking questions of the financials, and it's going to make you a better bookkeeper overall. So don't cut corners just because it's easy, it's simple, it's the same number every month, especially if you only have 5 clients, like we talked about. Like if that's your goal, that way when you do have the opportunity to take on a bigger client, you can say, yes, I want this, no, I don't. Oh, let me check the chat. But like,
Yeah, I answered some of them, Sherry, but I'm happy to answer them on here if I want.
cool. Okay, I'll get to that. One more point. If you haven't read, and I don't know if this is on our blog, Megan, for the book list, Pumpkin Plan.
It is, yeah. I can pull that list. I have it pulled up, I think.
Oh yeah, I also saw that you guys are starting the Go Giver book.
Go good. Yeah.
I like that book. It's a good book. Pumpkin Plan. Go read Pumpkin Plan. If you're not going to read it or listen to the audiobook, hot tip, Mike Michalowicz does a really good keynote on YouTube about Pumpkin Plan. Like might be a TED Talk or something, but the book is it's a really easy read. He's funny. He writes funny. It's worth listening to. I really enjoy listening to his books on Audible because he reads them. He's funny. He adds nuances to it. So like it's not just the book. He'll go off script, which is actually really nice. Like it feels like a really long podcast, and it's kind of nice to listen to. So go read that. And the reason is because that book's by Mike Michalowicz. Don't ask me how to spell his last name.
I dropped the blog, so the list of all of them are there.
His Google SEO is really good. So if you type in Pumpkin Plan by Mike, make up some M last name, he will show up. I promise.
He's probably used to people not knowing how to spell it.
No, he like leads with it. It's like it's
Yeah.
it just, so I'm not gonna even bother. Like, he knows it. It's an impossible last name to spell. Okay, it's not. I just don't. I'm not.
It's
That's not
not a
my area.
common one. Yeah, it's not common.
Okay. With that, if you can serve one person well, and that's why I reconcile payroll. That's why learn how to do it well. It's going to give you so much confidence to say yes to the next one. Okay. Okay, so we just talked about going 7 layers deep in understanding your why until, as Megan says all the time, you get to that emotional why. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you this framework in how you operate your business, and it's going to give you clear cut, dry, yes to this service, no to that. Yes, I'm going to stay up till 2 a.m. for 6 months working, or absolutely not, I will never stay up till 2 a.m. Does that make sense? Like, it's going to like make it very clear how you're going to start, grow, and then maintain the business. Some of you, it's going to mean you're going to go get the client and you're going to immediately find someone to do the work for you. Not that you don't know what you're doing. Like, I would still encourage you to know what you're doing, at least to some degree, so you can evaluate, is the person that you're hiring good enough to get the work done? And my brain like shoots out all kinds of red flags. So like, if that is your goal, please get on a one-to-one. Like, because that could go really badly. I've seen a lot of bookkeepers try to hire, and they hire someone like in our free group, or they hire someone in someone else's free group, and there are a lot of bookkeepers who talk like they know what they're doing, or talk like they're having a lot of success. And Megan and I have like watched these bookkeepers just get really burned. So there are a couple of like, if you were to get on a one-to-one and you're like, I'm thinking about hiring XYZ, and they're in a free group, feel free to run it by us. See if we know anything, or can like review the hire with you or something like, and that's a skill you'll learn. Okay. Now, we did send an email. So if you have like any questions about like, hey, this is what my why, you want us to hold you accountable to your why, you just want to let someone know what your why is so you have some accountability, reply to the email that you got this week and let us know. Let us know what that is. You can post it in the chat as well. You can post it on Facebook. Like, let us know what your why is. It starts to let us know like what we can help with, and it gives us some ideas on how to like help in the podcast of like answering your questions in terms of here's how to make that happen. Because anyone can start a bookkeeping business, anyone can start a marketing business. Like, our goal, and we've talked about this, Megan, this is coming up a lot on the Tuesday call right now, is what type of bookkeeping business do you want? Do you want the fly by night bookkeeping business? So like, oh man, there's a bookkeeping service that just I found out a little bit about because there's a client that I am familiar with that uses them. So it's not my client, but they do AI. Like, it's very AI driven. And I don't, yeah, they're using QuickBooks, but like they're basically having you categorize everything. Kind of like we do in Keeper or like things like that, but like they never self learn it. It's just, if they don't know, it gets asked, or like if like there's no personal boutique service behind it, whereas like we're like, hey, if you tell us all of Amazon is always cost of goods sold because you're only buying your coffee supplies and your coffee shop on Amazon, we're going to always code it to cost of goods sold. That's assuming they don't need like office supplies, right? Like printer paper, stuff like that. We're just saying there's always some nuances to some of the examples I give. Sometimes my brain doesn't give the best examples, but does that make sense? Like if or they're buying tools or something like specific from a specific vendor, it's always going to be XYZ, then it's always going to be XYZ and we don't have to ask them. Unless like sometimes we could make like a, well, if it's over $500, do you want me to ask? You know, like if it's over 2,500, do you want me to ask? Like, do you want us to receipt track? Things like that. But so as much as we want to ask, like I run a more like nuanced bookkeeping business. I am trying to do the work for you so your brain doesn't have to think. You already spent the money. If you gave me the document or I have access, I'm going to do as much work on my side to figure out what the transaction is and what the intent was based on your prior transactions. If you want to charge $97 a month, you don't care how much revenue, how many transactions, how long you're going to spend on the bookkeeping. You're going to be like this AI thing and you're going to push all the questions to the client. You're going to wait until they respond. And it is what it is. So that's come up a lot on that. So, but I would encourage you, go 7 layers deep on your why, and then build a business that you love with clarity, intention, and that's really action rooted in that deepest why. In terms of like, this is why, this is what this business has to look like for me to show up for it. Okay, Megan, those were all of my notes. I'm not sure if you have other thoughts. Yep, Mike McAllowitz.
Um, the biggest thing, like with the, just to touch on like the 7 layers deep and like why that's so important, like I can tell y'all, like for me personally, um, I started my business in like June of 2019, officially launched and was able to reach my goal by November of 2019. And that was because that's why I focused on that so much. Because that pushed me to get there fast. But that's why, like Sherry mentioned, it's so important to know like what your end goal is. What do you want from this business? What do you want that to look like? Because it doesn't look the same for everybody. Um, and then also, like, just to take that and to touch a little bit on like some of that comments, there was a comment in the chat about trying to get a job as a bookkeeper, going back to school, getting a degree, all those things. I didn't have a job as a bookkeeper. I don't have a degree. You can take a course. You just have to make sure that you have people in your corner that are going to be able to help you and guide you. Because one of the comments was made trying to learn everything 6 years in, and there's still sometimes one-off questions because you're going to deal with so many different types of businesses, so many different industries. Somebody's going to do something funky, or QuickBooks is going to do something funky, or whatever the case is. Like it's impossible to know everything about it. So that's why it's so important to have a community, have people. As coaches, we're all still asking each other, like, hey, this situation happened, or QuickBooks updated, or whatever the case is. So it's constantly a learning experience. You're never going to learn everything. And we've had several people who have their CPA license, who have accounting. Sherry has an accounting degree. Like all of that stuff, who still come and have questions and all the things. So like all the education in the world, you're not going to know how to do every single client's book, no matter what. So it's just being confident in yourself. And one thing that like I've learned about, like I know me personally, like I know that I'm not going to hand over somebody's books that's not done correctly. So if I don't know how to do it, I know I'm going to ask that question. So you just have to know yourself enough and be confident in the people that you're asking the question to, that you're going to get the answer. You're going to make sure it's done right. Because that's why we offer like one-to-ones. We have the group coaching calls and all of that, because you can hop in a one-to-one with one of the coaches and say, hey, can you review this before I turn this over? Or I don't know how to answer this question, or whatever the case is. Um, And then, like, even as far as somebody said, real life experience before starting your own business, you can do your personal books, practice coding, practice reconciling personal books. As you're starting your business, you're going to have expenses, do your own business book. So I think those, like, in my opinion, like for me, until I got in and started doing and getting hands on into books and doing it, that's where I gained the most confidence. So what does that look like for you? Is it doing your own books, stuff like that? Let's see, I need help finding a CPA or financial advisor or both to help me set my business up for financial success next year. I'm that second realm Sherry was talking about, and I need help for current savings and future business planning.
Yeah, Merrill Taylor is a good start. You can find a local financial planner. Dominion Wealth, let me drop their website, is someone I know that they do business, like some business coaching and financial planning. So like they're gonna do I have met them in person. But Merrill Taylor, especially on the tax side, he can do like the S Corp, the accountable plan, all of those things. And I know we talked about that. So, and then I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Like, you don't have to do all the things. And sometimes it's just having a plan set up, and you're going to start by funding something $50 a month just because you need to go ahead and get the framework in place. So as you grow, you have buckets to go ahead and put it in. It is easier to do that if you already have it set up. So, but Dominion Wealth Strategist, I have another name. I don't have their brochure on me right now. Too. Okay, the other thing I wanted to comment on was reconciliations, because I feel like if you have not taken a bookkeeping course, or like some sort of like the Bookkeeper Blueprint, for instance, as an example, reconciliations like aren't going to do you any good unless you understand the purpose of a reconciliation. So when I say to reconcile, right, what is reconciliation? Well, you can get into QuickBooks and say, well, the bank balance matches the bank feed. Well, what's the issue with that? You've just reconciled QuickBooks to QuickBooks. So data that comes into QuickBooks to QuickBooks reports. That makes no sense from an accounting standpoint, like from an audit standpoint, from a financial review standpoint. We don't do that as accountants. You do not reconcile software to its software. Some of you guys accidentally do this because you pull the AR aging report and you're like, well, the invoice, they match. There needs to be some sort of external verification of what's in QuickBooks. The reason, so with payroll, we're not reconciling, hey, here's what's in the P&L to here's what we think payroll should be. Like, does that make sense? Like, we're obviously going to ask, does that make sense? That is the whole purpose of reviewing the financials. Does the story that the financials are telling make sense? So you're going to reconcile what came through payroll, your journal entries, etc., to the actual payroll reports through Gusto, QuickBooks Payroll, ADP, etc. You're going to physically pull those liability reports, and you're going to physically hit reconcile inside of QuickBooks Online and reconcile the liabilities. And they should match. And what's going to happen the following quarter when that, let's call it $500, is taken out of the account to pay state payroll liabilities, you're going to see a $5,000 balance. You're going to see it relieved, meaning you're going to see a positive 500 increasing the liability, and then you're going to see a negative 500 with the money coming out of the bank. Now, yes, QuickBooks, Gusto, a couple of others take it out right away. That does not free you from reconciling it. Okay, so in that case, you might pull up. I really want you guys to be doing this monthly. Some of you guys are going to do it quarterly through the payroll filing reports that are filed. The problem, and one of our students encountered this, is she wasn't doing this, and we have been talking for a year about her doing this, and that's okay, because until you understand the reason why, you're not going to do it. Like, that's just the reality. And so, sure enough, something happened in payroll. She had to do she had to contact QuickBooks for a correction. Then she had to help the client amend the filings, which you cannot do if you're not a tax preparer. If you don't have a P10, it's outside of your scope because it's an actual IRS tax form. So it's the client to fill out and submit. Well, when I'm asking her if she's reconciling it, had she been fully completing the bookkeeping in this, like, okay, what was paid out to contractors, what was paid out to payroll, this would have been caught because a employee on the books was paid a payroll, like a contractor check. So it should have been caught on the monthly basis. If we can catch it monthly, we don't have to go back and amend filings. Hot tip, you might consider implementing some sort of be very clear with your clients what your scope is and what it isn't regarding payroll. If you're going to hit submit on it, they think you're taking care of everything. So if that's the case, don't let them sign up for like payroll, like Gusto or QuickBooks Payroll Core, which doesn't do amendments, right? Like help yourself if issues arise. Like, it requires certain levels of payroll if you're hitting submit on it. If they want to run it, they're going to process it, they're going to do all of those things. They want to use Payroll Core, fine. We can still support them, but we're going to charge them maybe for that, like the call in which we have to get on and say, this is what you need to do. Here's the report. We're going to help them and we're going to do it on the call with them. Like, we're going to get them the information. That's an option. Or you can just charge a flat rate, help pull it together for them, send it to them and say, this is what you need to do. But that's where we start thinking about customer service. Are we doing client calls at all, ever, for any reason? Like, or do we just say, nope, that's not my scope? And I would make sure you have a CPA who can do it, where they come to you with a payroll problem, you send them to a payroll specialist. So just options, but I did want to highlight reconciliation, what that actually entails. You always reconcile to a third, like to an outside source, not internal to QuickBooks. Obviously, if they're running QuickBooks Payroll, but QuickBooks Payroll has separate reports from the bookkeeping reports, you're going to reconcile the two of those. And it will make your quarterly reconciliation so much easier when you go to check to make sure, because like on the first of the month, when QuickBooks starts to produce those filings or Gusto starts to produce those quarterly filings, I hope you're checking them. But like, you pull them up, you review them. Megan, you know how many people aren't checking them?
No, I know. I've had several conversations, and y'all, there is so many courses, so much information out that lack reviewing the balance sheet and knowing stuff on the balance sheet. Because if there was that information there, y'all would know this has to be done and how important this is. Um, but we have people like all the time that come and have no idea how important that is and stuff. So yeah, that's the only reason I laughed, because it's not funny, but like there's just not misinformation, but a lack of information. It's just like, oh, bookkeeping's easy. It's just data entry. There's more to it.
There's some checks and balances that can really make your life easier. And it's just timing. So quarterly filings are going out right now. So it's just the season, which is why I tangented to reconciliations. So if I'm doing the financials, I take ownership for reconciling everything that's in the financials because my name's on the financials as a whole. My name isn't just on the P&L. Um,
And it's
so
still different than actually processing the payroll. So like know that. So like just because you told them you don't do payroll, but you are telling them that you're making sure everything that's on the P&L, that's on the balance sheet is correct and accurate.
yeah, I mean, or if you're choosing not to do that, just know that like I don't know. I cannot in integrity give someone a balance sheet and financials and not have everything reconciled on the books. The exception would be I've had a client for however long we've had this book. We've been doing this podcast. Um, and they never gave me their tax return. They're finally giving me their tax return so I could true up equity and their capital. But that's been a very, hey, you know that this isn't done every year. And their CPAs or one's an inactive CPA. They have a CPA do their books, so that's on them. I just let them know. Here's your financials, mainly your P&L because these accounts are not trued up. They're not tied out. So um, that I'm more okay with than like leaving payroll liabilities unreconciled on the balance sheet. I mean, even if the other example, so we just mentioned balance sheet. The other example I would argue is Megan, remember we had this payroll issue earlier this year where someone was like double counting payroll because like a check went out, like a manual
Yeah.
check went out, but it was also run through payroll. And
Yep.
so like it was booked in the payroll journal entry, but there was also a manual check. So it was duplicated. So even if there's no payroll liabilities, you have to reconcile payroll, all of payroll. And she thought in this instance, I forget who it is. I don't. Um, what had happened was she had reconciled like her payroll sub accounts, her withholdings, her salary, wages, owner, comp. She had reconciled those accounts, but then she had another account right above it on the P&L that contained these other checks. So it was duplicating on the P&L when we dove in to reconcile all of that payroll. So even if there's not something on the balance sheet, you're still reconciling all of payroll. Your P&L should be um, checked and looked into. And that's when I start to say like, hey, does the story make sense? The story of that payroll did not make sense. And I know Megan and I went back and forth with her on it because it was such a funky um, duplication. Like, yeah, her journal entries are right, but when I got into the P&L, I'm like, but they're right here too. Like, so we had to map it more correctly. Um, so mapping alone, Cameron, I just would argue isn't enough to make sure the financials are right. Okay. Well, there's a half a podcast on reconciliations. Hope that's okay. Okay, any other
Important and
questions?
much needed.
Um, highly recommend the Bookkeeper Blueprint, even if it's signing up for just the training. Thank you for that, absolutely. Guys, real quick comment on the Bookkeeper Blueprint. When we did the Bookkeeper Blueprint, I really wrestled in Megan, you and I talked so much when we were putting this together. Like, yeah, we could just teach you how to do the bookkeeping. That is not what that course is. It is like 5 years of growing your business. So like having it on hand for like the next 5 years, that's what's in it. So like as you grow, you're going to be bombarded with Facebook ads until like people get old with those, right? You're going to get done with them. You can only attend so many webinars. That's what's in the Bookkeeper Blueprint, is all those questions when you wake up 2 years from now and you're like, well, I want to add a service now, or I want to use the financial planning section. Did you guys see that update in QuickBooks Online? Like, I want to use that. How do I use it? How do I charge for it? That's inside the Bookkeeper Blueprint. So Cameron, I did see your question. Do they have the same EIN? That wasn't clear. If it's a different EIN, start a new QuickBooks. If it's the same EIN, you're going to have to, you're going to have to probably clean up the balance sheet. You might work with the tax professional on it to see what they want to see as far as like retained earnings goes. And like if they want you to zero that out at all. I would tie out 2024 to the C, like the Schedule C return. How long have they been in business? Because I might go
Several
as far
years.
as getting all of their tax returns and truing up all of the tax returns so I can make sure the balance sheet is at least correct going into that. But otherwise, like you're just going to make some changes to like you're going to add a chart of accounts for the like owners' wages. You're going to, so they didn't have payroll for themselves on the chart of accounts. So you'll add that, and then equity is going to change a little bit in the language, the accounts that are being used there.
So is there like no closing of the books? Is that not required, or we use the same subscription and just change the entity type?
Mm-hmm. If it's the same EIN, they could elect to do another one, a new one. Well, you really only need to if it's a different EIN.
And this is a client where we recommended him do a cleanup last year, and he didn't opt for it. And there's issues, the tax preparer or the tax professional and myself that has noticed.
So either you can do a journal entry to bring those beginning balances up to speed. Again, theoretically, like if there's issues, I would take each of the prior year tax returns and fix it. But I don't know how involved like invoicing and bill pay is to the mess. So if that's the case, then you can opt to make him use a new QBO and just get him to save all the prior stuff outside of QuickBooks or to back it up. Because I think you were using Rewind. You could make them pay for a Rewind. But you could also just pull all the documents by year. I just did that for a client. So we pulled each year that they were in business. We pulled all the reports, the general ledger, the everything. And we put it into a file by year so that they had like historical documents should they ever get audited. Because, right, like it's not QuickBooks that the IRS needs. They need the physical records. So from an accounting standpoint, you're going to pull the physical accounting records, the trial balance, the general ledger, balance sheets, profit and loss. We're going to pull them in summary. You might pull them in detail. I would give them as much as you can. Accounts receivable reports, agings, etc. So you can also instruct him to do it. I would be inclined to do it and then have him, you could start a new QuickBooks file. You can't do that. And it sounds like you're in communication with the tax preparer.
So he had a tax preparer last year that he has parted ways with because he felt like things weren't done the right way. And it looks like things were kind of weird with the new tax professional that's I'm working with. And we told him that he needs to do a cleanup. He has a lot of things in undeposited funds and old AR that's just sitting there on, they just did like journal entries to circumvent because they didn't understand how QuickBooks worked. He was a Schedule C, didn't have a balance sheet, but his balance sheet is messed up currently because of these issues, and they just kept being cumulative. And I don't want to like dig into stuff because I'm not getting paid for this, and I don't want to make myself liable. It's not in the scope. But I want to also help this person. This is like one of my first clients. So
You can clean up. You can do a formal cleanup of that AR and still do a journal entry to bring so a journal entry was done historically. It's still sitting on the aging. You can still clean out the aging, do another journal entry to offset your financial statement impact to that. So that's not a deal breaker to me. But it sounds like you have a quoting problem there. You have work that needs to be done that you're not willing to charge for. So the client isn't willing to pay for. That's up to you. So how you handle that, you either this is what is, or you start a new one and you're going to you'll need to work with his new tax preparer. On the retained earnings side and stuff. So, and we don't have time to get into all of that, but absolutely, if you want to just start a new QuickBooks file, you could, as of January 1st. Does that answer that question?
Still don't feel comfortable, but I think we don't have time. I guess I'd have to set up a call, but I'm not feeling confident right now.
Yeah, that'd be more of a call. Just because, and that's why I didn't go into it at the very beginning, was just, there's so much more to that. You can clean it up. You can use journal entries, clean it up, get it squared away. But it's going to take some time. So you would have to charge for that. You could start a new QuickBooks file. Either way, this is a new client to you. This setup, you either charge for setup. Innately, every client that onboards. So it could be 1 month of the first month's cost, right? So immediately, if you're charging $600 a month, that first month is $1,200 because of setup. That's all things that you have to factor in and how you quote, or you build the cost into your monthly cost and you increase your rate just a little bit to smooth that over. But that's it. So that's now a business discussion. There's two different discussions here. So one, charging for the work that you're about to do, two, actually doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. And I feel like that's commingled here, but absolutely. Could you start a new QBO? Megan, you would probably start a new QBO, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
In that situation. So that's a valid option. Okay. Well, I've got to jump off. Pleasure always. See you guys next Thursday.
All right. Bye. Y'all have a good week.